So good afternoon. Thanks for joining. Normally, I'm always on such events. I'm always the last speaker before lunch. Now I'm the first speaker after lunch. I don't know which one is better. Today, in this 20 minutes, I want to talk about the latest component which we added to our NetWitness platform. It's UEBA, User and Entity Behavior Analytics, where we apply machine learning techniques. I wouldn't say artificial intelligence, it's machine learning in fact. So automation in detecting the unusual, or as my title says, detect the unknown, something which you would not normally spot using standard techniques that you might know using a standard CM product. So why do we need such things like machine learning? Because as you all know, you have heard it already several times today from the other speakers, we see an evolving threat landscape where we have an expanded attack surface where possible attackers are on your endpoints, are on the network, are using different kinds of techniques, different tools, tactics and procedures to attack the companies. And it's a fact, if someone wants to get into your company because you have something valuable for them, they will find a way. Sooner or later you will be infected. And the goal is now to detect it as early as possible. Sometimes we see at customer sites very siloed visibility, CM tools, endpoint detection tools from different vendors. They don't collaborate between each other. Maybe the endpoint tool sends logs to the CM tool, but nothing more than that. So it's kind of limited visibility, nothing like what you've seen before in the previous presentations. And the thing is, as you already heard from Corne's and Peter's presentation, it's very hard to find skilled personnel. If we think about machine learning, we have a lot of data to process. We have you nearly need data scientists in every company to be able to process this large amount of data. And some vendors are already on the market which have some UEBA solutions, but when you try them, you sooner or later you find out very early that it's costly and very time consuming to implement such solutions, because they need tuning, they need manual intervention so that they work. And we try to help you a bit more in this with these scenarios. And the rule-based detection, as we know from the CM tools, like the classical correlation rule that every CM vendor has, 5 failed logins followed by a successful login. What happens if the attacker does only 4 failed logins before he does the successful login? The rule will not fire, you will not see them. So the rule-based detection, we still need it for some cases, but it's not good enough anymore. We need more things to detect the unknown, unknown internal threats that also might happen. Because the most dangerous thing is, what is if the attacker is already in your network, has already succeeded infecting or bypassing the preventative controls that you have, your IPSs, your firewalls. Maybe they already succeeded infecting one or the other machine or taking over the user accounts. So it's the goal to find such behavior by using machine learning techniques. And as I said before, this detection 1.0 approach that we see still in some tools doesn't work anymore. Therefore, you've seen already this slide today from several other presentators. We have the NetWitness platform, which has a lot of shelves around the kernel, around the platform, and one of those is UEBA, where we do the machine learning approach to detect such things. What is RSA Net Witness UEBA? So it's a big data ready entity behavior analytics solution that is fully integrated into our NetWitness platform. And the keyword here is unsupervised statistical anomaly detection. Unsupervised means the product does not need any tuning at all. You turn it on, you tell the system, go read the data, there you find the data, the logs, endpoint data, network data, consume it, apply your models, and present me the result. No need for you to do any tuning or any changes to the architecture. Just point the solution to the data and it will start running and give you high quality results by applying different kind of models. How do we do that? So first of all, we grab the data, or the NetWitness platform is grabbing the data from different kind of sources. And we are enriching this data with user context. I come to that a bit later. Then the next stage is that this data is then ingested into the machine learning machine program, whatever, where we use a unified data model to apply specific models on it, yeah, and we build a baseline. How does a specific user behave normally? And when then we see in the analytics phase that a user behaves now a little bit different, maybe logging on in different times of a day, or has an unusual high amount of failed logons, or we see him on his machine, unusual processes starting, something where it deviates from the baseline, then we do some alerts. The system produces some alerts, gives you indication something has happened. Yeah? And we don't do that on the individual user alone, but we look at the mass of users, at the group of users. How does the complete community of your users normally behave? You don't have, or you have only a few people logging on to systems off hours. Those are maybe the administrators. The system will know that soon that those are administrators, and for an administrator user this is a normal behavior. But if someone who is a non-administrative user does the same thing, we get the spike and we might do an alert. So the data capture, what do we need for applying these models to the users? For the user behavior, we use Active Directory information. So we get Windows logs that are collected by NetWitness for logs, which is normalized into different kind of metadata. So we are extracting then logon activity information, Active Directory information like changes to user groups, addition to creation of user groups, adding, removing users from specific user groups, and even the file access model, so that you can detect if a user is accessing an unusual amount of files or is moving to folders where he has never been before. Yeah? So all of that is taking into account, is injected into the system to give you a bit more information. This was in the version that we have already a year running. Last week we announced also a new edition of the software, which has also now the endpoint model, so the E of UEBA. Before we were UBA, now we are UEBA. So we are taking also information that the systems, that the machines that the users are running on are producing. So we have indicators of compromise, like you saw in the presentation from Eric before, where we detect PowerShell execution, that LSAS is opened by another process, Mimikatz is being executed, etc., etc. We detect processes being started. And we know exactly by learning over a specific period of time that on this machine we've never seen this specific executable. It started the first time. And we've never seen this executable in the whole company. So, and if this executable is then maybe writing into registry keys, establishing it as an auto run from an unusual directory location, this is a high probability that this process might be malicious, and this process needs to be flagged. And we correlate this information of the machine with the user who is logged onto the machine, with the user information that we have from this user, and then we are able to produce alerts. So by doing that, we should give you a full autonomous detection, machine learning detection, unsupervised, as I said before, no need for an administrator to write rules, to do manual intervention at all. How does it work under the hood, this behavior model? So we are using different kind of techniques. So in the multi-tiered unsupervised machine learning, the system tunes itself autonomous, so it applies specific techniques to the baseline. It levels the baseline depending on the type of events that we are getting, and it does a recursive pattern recognition. That means whenever we see something new, we go through all the other patterns that we already know, apply the new pattern, and all the models are being recalculated so that we get, based on the new patterns, we get immediate results then back from something we have detected new. So we do, as I already mentioned, also statistical analysis, where we look for a standard deviation from the baseline of the specific user, some behavior outliers from the user itself or compared to the group of users, or something which we've never seen at all before, something which occurs new, which the system has never seen before. Then we do advanced correlation. So using this multivariate analysis is something which is some technique that is being used in machine learning. You can Google that. It's a very long article. I couldn't hardly understand it. It's applying different kind of variables at the same time in a rule to do advanced correlation, some mathematical model. And and we give you then the possibility to seamlessly see the alerts which we have detected, prioritize them, etc. The models that we are applying, we have a time-based model, so where we look at the time of the event that has occurred, like a logon activity, a change to a user group, a process that has been started, etc. Yeah? So we see then authentication anomaly, so like someone is never logging on after midnight, suddenly we see some logons after midnight, maybe from a different time zone, from a country where we've never seen this user before. This would be an indicator. File access time anomaly, when someone is accessing a file at some unusual time, and also the Active Directory changes on the weekend. Maybe we never change stuff on the weekend. Yeah? Then there is the so-called continuous model, which is monitoring counters and checking how often or how much, in this case, files have been accessed, how much Active Directory changes a user normally does. When we see, okay, this an administrator, we usually see over, or in an hour, 4, 5, 6 changes. Suddenly we see hundreds of changes. That could mean that this user has been compromised and is doing something suspicious. And also we look at failed logons that might happen. Then we categorize this model in the categorical model, where we look for abnormal activity on source computers, folders that have been accessed the first time. We never access a specific folder. Suddenly we see a user accessing a file share where he's never been, yeah? Or he accesses a server that he never has accessed. So this way we detect lateral movements. And finally we have a global model which is doing some noise reduction, applying some specific things that we detect, also things which occur very, very rarely. Yeah? On the user model itself, that we apply, this is also in combination then with endpoint. Has this user ever started this process in the past? Did he run this WinWord exe, Notepad exe, whatever, already in the past? Yeah? Has this process ever run on this specific machine? Has this user ever, or this process ever created a registry key, this specific registry key? By that we find out something which we've never seen in the past in the community or for this specific user. Yeah? Same thing on the context. Has this process ever changed the specific registry key on some machine? If it is the first time, suspicious. It might not be bad, but we take into account other things that we know about this process, about this user, so that we will be able to spot some things. Yeah? In the inverse model, we see, is this registry key changed very often in general? Or is it normally never changed at all? Yeah? And again, which process changes this registry key, etc. So all about registry. And again, the global model is checking how often in general do registry change in the community amongst our group. And by that, we are very confident that we will be able to give you very accurate results. In a before scenario, if you are running the correlation rule-based model, you might get siloed events. You might not spot specific occurrences of some events. And by applying this scenario, we see complete aggregated events showing or bringing hundreds of events together, applying the model to them, and give you specific alerts. What can you expect from, which use cases you can expect from UEBA to detect? Command and control activity, lateral movement, Active Directory attacks, if someone tries to change a lot of things. What we've seen at POCs is shared user credentials, where users just pass over maybe administrative accounts to another user, which they normally should not do, where we see account sharing, which from a security perspective should not be done. And you see the rest, the slides are being distributed, so I don't read all this stuff. And everything which is here in red is the endpoint detection model. The black one is the user detection model. So with the endpoint detection model, we see credential dumping, discovery, things like what Eric showed before, the who am I command, display DNS stuff, the DNS dumping and such things, registry modification, PowerShell scripting, etc., etc., and more. And we apply this MITRE attack model to it, so that you have a common language and you know what you can see. Some examples: analyzing logon activity, the U from the UEBA. If you just look at the Windows logons, the 4624 and the 4625, I think, the interactive logins, failed logins, successful logins, over 2 months, 5,000 Active Directory users. This specific customer got 1.6 billion events, which is milliard in our area. And then those 7 specific models have been applied to it, like abnormal log-on time, abnormal source computer, destination computer, multiple successful authentication, multiple source computers being used, multiple destination computers used, etc. So out of those 1.6 billion raw events, we found 3009 indicators that resulted in 56 alerts, and 37 high-risky users have been identified, and someone can then specifically look at those 37 users, and we see then those tactics that an attacker might be used, like brute force authentication, using something in non-standard hours, etc., etc. Yeah? The same thing that we have for the user is now for the endpoint. So we are applying 11 models to the endpoint, detecting all the stuff that I already showed to you. And in 11.4, this is the new version which will come out in September, we will have the same thing for network, net witness for network, where we are analyzing the network traffic. So we have 27 models like abnormal destination IP, outbound SSL connections, etc., etc. You can read it then on the slides. I don't want to spend too much time on just reading the slides. So by applying those different things, we could detect what the specific attacker is doing. So on the top we have an attacker doing a brute force attack, then he's moving horizontally across Active Directory to gain more access. Then he obtains elevated privileges, installs a backdoor account, and then transfers the data out. And by UEBA, we are detecting this kind of activity by unusual number of failed logins, followed then by a successful login. Then we have the movement to different servers, Active Directory account changed, a new user may be created, and then we see abnormal file amount of files being accessed and transferred out. Just to give you an idea how that might look like, so the console for a user inside NetWitness, you see on the most high risky users and the alerts that we've seen. Dashboard is configurable. If I click on a specific user, I will then get here the information on this specific user, where we see an aggregated and a normalized score. This score is being created by the smart alerts that you see. So every single alert, like abnormal Active Directory change, brute force authentication, counts to that number of the score. And then we see the use case details, why the system thinks that this score is so high. So it's not a black box, because we give you also the information, we give you also direct access to the relevant data. And if I click on an IP address or a user, I'm transferred into this NetWitness display, which you've seen already before, where I can analyze then my logs, my endpoint, my network data. I hope this short presentation gave you an idea what we can do with this machine learning technique. We are just at the beginning. New models are being developed continuously, and you can expect more very soon. Thanks a lot.